Hi everybody, it's Courtney and April from Schneider Driver Recruiting. Today we're here with Henry, one of our training engineers, currently in our Green Bay Park location, or Green Bay Operating Center. We just wanted to get a little bit of a broad overview as to what to experience when you're out with a training engineer for our inexperienced training. So I'll let you kick it off, April, and kind of dive on in.
So first question for you is, how long have you been a training engineer for here at Schneider?
3 years.
3 years. Okay,
Perfect.
Very cool.
And in your time and in the 3 years, kind of dive on into just a little bit of a broad overview as to what an inexperienced driver would, expect in this week that they're out over the road.
Sure. So after your first 2 weeks here at Schneider, you're going to be in classroom, you're going to be out on the road with our engineers or our trainers that are right here at our academies. But then you're going to spend a week on the road with one of the guys or gals like me who's a training engineer. I'm a regular driver, but I take students with me to give them their experience they need before they go out solo. But the management, the expectations are going to be a little different. Instead of you being taught by our academy drivers, now it's your turn to drive. And it'll be my turn to help you understand what you're going to be doing if there are additional questions. But at this point, you're the driver.
I like that you said that too. We get I think a lot of people assume, well, I'm just going to sit and watch you do your job. Not at all.
No.
We normally say about 80% of the time trainee is driving. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the student's expected to drive about 80% of the time. And then roughly 20%, maybe a little less. If I've got a student who's doing really well and they're comfortable driving and they're not getting fatigued, I'll let them drive. But we manage the time that they drive fairly carefully so that we don't overextend somebody.
Right.
Again, we understand that this first week in the truck is rather stressful, so we want to manage their expectations as well as their fatigue levels. But we also want them to experience what's it like to say, hey, you know what, I really need to stop here. I'm a little tired, or I need to take a break.
So is that something too that, I've had a driver before tell me at a other location they felt really fatigued, felt unsafe, but the trainer said, no, you got to keep going.
Nope.
Definitely not going to happen.
No, that's not what we do. We're here to teach you great methods on how to manage your fatigue. Maybe you need to take a 5-minute break. Maybe you need to take a 30-minute nap. Did that last week. Absolutely. Stopped the truck, took my 30-minute break, closed my eyes for about 25 minutes.
And then you were ready to go.
Ready to go.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we want people to do that. We don't want people to be pushing, and finding that they're not really ready. And then they make a poor judgment and they have an accident.
Right, absolutely.
So one of the other questions that we get very often from drivers is, are you guys just driving? Is there actual freight being hauled? Can you kind of go over that in a little bit more detail?
Sure. So you're going to join me for a regular week. What my job is like any other day of the week, that's what you're going to be doing with me. So we have a combination of drop and hooks. We may have a live load or live unload, but it's a regular freight running operation. This is your week of actually being a Schneider truck driver. It's actually your first week.
Right.
You just happen to have somebody with you who can answer some questions. And if you need some additional help, there might be something that you're working on. Maybe your backing wasn't so hot that week or was a little irregular. If we have time, we love to work with students to help them manage their understanding of backing, or perhaps maybe it's something on the computer that is still a little foggy out.
Yeah, we get a lot of those, like, I'm doing really great with my driving, but it's logging or keeping track of my miles or my hours, whatever it may be. So it really is all-encompassing once you go out with you over the road.
Part of this week is helping students gain some new habits.
Right.
Because once you get into a routine and you really understand how this works, it goes pretty quickly.
Right.
But you've got to work with somebody who's done it regularly, and then bang, you've got it. By the end of the week, you should be much better and much more comfortable in understanding what you've got to do. And then when you're done with us for this week, you'll be working with a driver business leader who's experienced in working with inexperienced drivers.
Right.
So they'll be able to walk you through. If you get to that following week and you think, oh shoot, how did Henry teach me how to do that? Your DVL will help you.
Awesome. Perfect. And we keep saying week. Is it always 7 days, or is it longer, shorter, whatever it may be?
Yeah, typically it runs anywhere between 5 and 7 days.
Okay.
We like to see around 5 to 6 days. For me, I'm a dedicated over-the-road driver, meaning I work on a Georgia Pacific account. So I'm typically out 5.5 days. Sometimes I'm done in 5. Sometimes it takes 7.
Right.
But not very often.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you pack for 5 to 6 days of underwear, socks, a few shirts, maybe an extra pair of pants, a pillow if you have a pillow that you prefer.
Right.
Because the driver typically does not supply you with bedding. So either a sheet and a blanket or a sleeping bag works great to have with you on the road.
Perfect. Awesome. And now to kind of follow up on what to pack, what to bring, we get that question a lot as to what can I fit. Those that are flying sometimes, they bring a lot of stuff with them. What all can fit in the truck and what can't fit, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things you could do if you're flying in particular, and you've typically got a larger suitcase, pack a duffel in the suitcase. Then just bring the duffel bag with you in the truck, because there probably won't be room for the big suitcase in the truck. Think of it this way. You're going to be in the upper bunk. If that suitcase doesn't fit up there when you're sleeping, where's it going to go?
Unless you don't mind sleeping next to your suitcase.
Well,
yeah.
sometimes you do, but or sometimes we can find a place for it in the seat, but it just gets difficult to manage. So if you can kind of pack it down like you're going camping, right? And the same thing for toiletries. You want to make sure that you bring all your toiletries. Please avoid any strong perfumes or colognes, because it's about 100 square feet of living space, and
you're with
even
another
if it's
person.
nice, it's somebody else's stuff, and you just don't need that. Bring a towel.
Okay.
Sometimes we stop at places that offer showers, but they don't offer a towel.
Okay.
Pilot is wonderful for that. They give you everything you need. But perhaps you'll stop at a rest area in Ohio where on Interstate 80, those rest areas actually have trucker showers. You just have to bring your own towel.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, it's definitely a good follow-up.
And kind of going off of that as well, as far as packing with meals out on the road, can you cover that a little bit? How much money to ideally bring? Can I bring food? Is there a fridge? Kind of going over that topic.
Yeah, so you're going to get a phone call from your training engineer the weekend before you go out. And you want to be sure that you're understanding what they have available in their truck. Different trucks have different capabilities. In this brand new truck, we've got a refrigerator. So I've got a little bit of room for maybe a quarter milk and some yogurts and a few things like that, maybe some lunch meat. You want to bring whatever you can to minimize the amount of money you're spending out of pocket at restaurants or rest areas, because it tends to get very expensive. And that's true when you're on the road the following weeks. I typically bring everything I need for dinner, for instance, with me for the week. I might buy dinner out once. Breakfast, I never buy out. Lunchtime, I've always got my lunch goodies. So, yeah. And then as far as cash is concerned, usually somewhere between $100 to $150 is a good number. You can certainly get by with 50 or 60 if you're careful and prudent with how you're spending your money. And I understand, I was there too. It's a little challenging when you first start out.
Yeah.
Your budgets are a little tight, so there's another reason to go to the grocery store before you come to the training academy to meet your training engineer and pack up on those snacks that you like and those kinds of things that tend to get expensive when you're buying them one at a time.
I like that you mentioned that you get the phone call before you go out with the trainer, because I think a lot of them assume, or a lot of drivers assume, that I'm going to meet my training engineer for the first time Monday morning, 10 minutes before we hop out on the road. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too. Now, when you're going out, I've heard unfortunate stories of people that I was in a truck with two other people or two other trainees, one at a time, correct?
Typically one at a time. If we have to do two students, we get a hotel room.
Okay.
Two stay in the truck, and then, of course, one stays in the hotel room. If I take a female student out, obviously there's a hotel room involved. Okay. So that either the driver or the student stays in the hotel room overnight, so there's only one person staying in the truck.
Okay. And do you recommend then that in that case, maybe the trainees stay in the truck to get it just a little bit more of a vibe to as to what life is going to be like once you're by yourself?
Once you get used to it, it is a small camper without not every amenity in it. For instance, we don't have bathrooms on board, so you typically have to stop someplace where there's a restroom that you can use. But otherwise, you get pretty comfortable figuring out where things go and what you really need to have on board and what you don't need to have on board. So this is that week to figure out, I don't really need that, and I don't need my big suitcase. I just need a few things to get me through the week as though I were camping. And if you're an avid camper, that's going to ring true right away. You're going to go, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, you're going camping for a week.
Well, Henry, thank you very much for talking with us today. Really appreciate it. It gives us, too, insights.
Yes, for sure.
It helps us explain it a little bit more to those that we're talking to on the phone, whoever it may be. So, yeah, if you're definitely looking to come on board, and this is part of our inexperienced training and orientation, gives you a little bit more insight. You can definitely apply. Give us a call. SchneiderJobs.com, always open, and give the recruiters a call as well, too.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.